again. Last time, we explored the causes of food poisoning such as microorganisms. Today we will discuss how we can detect and prevent contamination. Let's get right to it. First question, where can contamination occur? Well, food can be contaminated at any point between farm and plate. During growth, harvesting, storage, transport, cooking or serving. Contamination can either be from the source or more frequently by cross-contamination. This means the transfer of harmful contaminants, usually bacteria, from one surface or item to another. Cross-contamination is particularly hazardous when dealing with raw, fresh or ready-to-eat foods, such as fruits, salad or other vegetables. The absence of cooking before serving means harmful organisms remain in or on the food. Now let's talk about the types of contamination. There are mainly 4 types. Microbiological, bacteria, yeasts, molds and viruses. Larger foodborne parasites are rare in Western societies. Chemical, substances from water to food ingredients. Cleaning agents, pest control chemicals. Environmental, pesticides and food additives. Physical, objects from glass, packaging materials, personal jewelry, pest droppings to screws and bolts. Allergens, constituents of food that cause dangerous allergic reactions in some people. All biological contamination has a source and vehicle before causing food poisoning. Bacteria can enter food by 3 main methods: passive, indirect, and direct. Direct and indirect cross-contamination will be discussed in more detail later, but passive contamination occurs via several routes. Food animals. Pathogens are transferred via the skins or intestines as fecal matter crosses over during slaughter. Milk and dairy products. Milk is the perfect bacterial reproduction medium, being warm, fluid and stored for long periods. Poultry. Slaughtering machinery can transfer bacteria between birds. Eggs. Salmonella is passed on to eggs by contact with others or fecal matter. Seafood. Bacteria accumulate via the filter feeding organs, in living mollusks particularly dangerous if eaten raw. Uncooked fruit and vegetables can contain soil or airborne microorganisms. Insects contaminate them with urine and feces. Water must be treated to neutralize runoff from stagnation, soil, sewage, and slurry. Storage tank water should only be used for washing. Now comes direct and indirect cross-contamination. Cross-contamination describes the transfer of harmful bacteria to high-risk foods. This most commonly happens when juices from raw meat or dirty objects touch cooked or ready-to-eat foods, causing food poisoning. By following a few standards, legally enforceable steps during transport, storage, and preparation, you can substantially reduce the risk of food poisoning at every stage of the production process. There are mainly 3 routes for cross-contamination, which are food to food, people to food, and equipment to food. Food can quickly become contaminated with bacteria from other foods, especially from raw foods to cooked foods. For example, when raw meat is stored on the upper shelf of a refrigerator, juices can drip onto cooked food below. Another is when raw fish is placed next to a burger, being cooked on a grill. The method of transfer could be your own hands, direct. Utensils such as spatulas, plates or bowls, or even a cooker themselves, indirect. For people to food, food handlers themselves are a source of direct cross-contamination. Pathogens can be transferred by handling raw meat and then preparing vegetables without washing hands, direct. Touching food after using the toilet without adequately washing your hands, direct. Using an apron to wipe your hands on between handling different raw and cooked foods, indirect. Wiping a food preparation counter with a dishcloth before using it to wipe your hands, direct. As the name equipment to food suggests, microorganisms can pass from equipment and utensils to food, also known as indirect contamination. This usually occurs because the equipment or utensils weren't thoroughly cleaned and sterilized each time they were used. Examples are using the same chopping board for slicing chicken then vegetables, or storing a stew in an unwashed container that was previously used for raw meat. So how can you detect and prevent cross-contamination? While some contaminants are obvious by sight, smell or heaven forbid taste, it is better to test food through a third-party accredited laboratory or certification organization, if possible. This ensures that food standards are maintained and comply with the law. Food should be tested higher up the production chain, by farms, manufacturers and larger food retailers. However, your business may have to test food when instructed by the local authority. Food testing laboratories usually test food for pathogens and chemicals. Often this is done according to the most likely risks for any given food type or group. For example, fruits would be tested for pesticides rather than antibiotics, which are more likely to be found in meat. Poultry is routinely examined for bacterial contamination by the likes of Salmonella or Campylobacter. For preventing cross-contamination, you should follow these steps. Thoroughly wash your hands while handling food, particularly in between different tasks. Avoid coughing, sneezing or touching your hair, and wash your hands afterwards. Use separate, clean utensils to prepare different foods. Avoid using the same cutting board and knife for cooked and raw food. Keep cooked food away from raw foods. Cover and store raw foods underneath cooked foods to prevent cross-contamination. Ensure refuse is stored correctly. Clean and sanitize waste bins and refuse areas to prevent pests. And that's a wrap on contamination. Do recap and proceed to the next module.